Hey guys, this week we're talking about Abraham, who is the father of the Jews. He's a key character of the Bible, and he also starts off the patristic era, which takes us through the rest of Genesis. And he's a very key important person with about 13 chapters devoted to him. So there's a lot of information that we can pull from him. And today I'm just going to hit some highlights. Now I do plan to do a full series talking about all the stuff that we can learn from him and all the stuff that happened in his life that we can know about. But that's for another day. So today we're just hitting highlights. So if I don't mention something that you know about, it's okay. I'm just hitting highlights today. Let's get into it. So first, let's talk about the call of Abram. So God goes to Abram while he's in Haran and is like, hey, go to the land of Canaan and I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And all families of earth will be blessed because of you. And so Abram's like, you know what? That sounds like a pretty great deal. He grabs his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and they go to the land of Canaan. And once they get there, God says, alright, I will deliver this land to your descendant. And this is a promise that isn't fulfilled until roughly 600 years later in the book of Joshua. So we skip ahead a few chapters to when God comes to Abram in a vision. And Abram is anxious because he doesn't have any children, yet he's supposed to be made into a great nation. So how is he supposed to be a great nation if his current heir is a servant in his household and not his own descendant, not his own child? And so God reassures him and says that your descendants are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky, that they're going to be countless, that you won't be able to count how many there are. So don't worry about it, you're going to have descendants, and a lot of them. You are going to be made into a nation. And God makes a covenant with him here as well, that we see what we today would consider to be very unusual, that animals are cut in half, placed on either side, and God walks down the middle. This is similar to an ancient Near Eastern custom for land grant treaties. So it is quite plausible here then that this covenant has to do with both Abram's descendants and the land that God's giving them, because he's already said that the land of Canaan is going to be for his descendants. So he reaffirms the descendants and then performs a land grant treaty with Abram, reaffirming that the land will be his. So this covenant right here that he's making is for not just his descendants, but for the land that they will live in too. So skipping a chapter ahead, God makes another covenant with Abram, and this is the covenant of circumcision. And Abram is also renamed to Abraham, which is a very significant change in his name because the meaning changes drastically. Because Abram means exalted father, while Abraham means father of a multitude. And at the very end of this, God also promises a descendant, finally a descendant that will be his heir, that he will be the father of nations. And finally, he's going to have a descendant that will be his heir, that he's going to have a child that will later be named Isaac. So Isaac is born and grows up some, and Abraham finally has his heir. But this all comes to a crashing halt as God comes up to Abraham and is like, hey, I want you to take your son Isaac, your only son whom you love. You take him up to the mountaintop, I want you to sacrifice him. And I'm sure Abraham was like, you want me to do what? But he does it. So he takes his son, brings him up to the mountaintop, brings some wood, a knife, and fire with him. And along the way up the mountaintop, Isaac asks him, it's like, hey, where's the sacrifice? And Abraham tells him, probably holding back tears in his eyes, says that God will provide. So they continue up the mountaintop, and they get to the top. And it isn't very clear what transpires, but we know that Abraham is sitting there with his son, his only son, tied up on the wood, his knife ready to sacrifice his son. An angel comes out real quick and yells for him to stop and says that he has proven himself, that the Lord has provided, that there's a ram caught in the thicket, and he should sacrifice that instead. And God is pleased with him because he didn't hold back his only son, the thing he loved most in the world, the thing he's been waiting for all this time, and he didn't hold it back from God. And he was prepared, he was ready, probably with tears in his eyes, probably in anguish, but he was ready to sacrifice it for God because he loved God more. And it's a tragic thing, but also we get to see truly how much faith Abraham had. Enough faith to be willing to sacrifice his own son, the very promise that God gave him. because he values God that much, because God is the top priority for him. Abraham was a man of faith. He believed God's promises, even though he didn't see most of them come to fruition. That he didn't see descendants as numerous as the stars. All he saw was one descendant. He didn't see them own Canaan. All they owned was a tomb. And yet he still believed God, had faith in him, and trusted him. And through the sacrifice of Isaac, we see just how much faith Abraham had. That he trusted God, and he had him as much of a priority and loved God so much that he was willing to sacrifice his own son for God. That God was more of a priority than Isaac was. The thing that he probably loved most in this world, God was a higher priority. That he loved God more. So how do we compare to that? We as Christians today. Because we have access to the Bible, which we see the promises that God made to Abram came true. We see descendants as numerous as the stars, and not just in the Jewish people, not just in Israel, but also as Paul asserts in Romans that the church itself is the new Israel, and that Gentiles are being grafted into Israel. And so, we see descendants, us as Christians, being very much spiritual descendants of Abram. That there are descendants, countless descendants, as numerous as the stars. We see over centuries of descendants. Tons and tons, hundreds and thousands and millions of descendants. And yet, do we have that kind of faith in God? That though Abraham saw none of that, and we have seen it, so we have more of a reason to trust him. But Abraham believed him and trusted him, so do we trust him that much?
Hey guys, I know this week was a little bit different than usual because there was a whole bunch of stuff going on around when I was recording, so I had to do it at home, and there was a whole bunch of weird stuff going on that's kind of still going on right now. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it, and don't forget to leave some feedback so I know what you're thinking. And as always, stay safe, friends, and may the Lord be with you.